stabbed him in the side of his face, and then she stabbed me." These were the words Margot Wood spoke through tears, recounting the most horrific moment of her life. The moment a complete stranger took everything from her in a grocery store parking lot on a sunny June afternoon. This is the story of Bionca Ellis and the senseless murder of 3-year-old Julian Wood. June 3rd, 2024, started like any other Monday for Margot Wood. She was a mother of 3 living in North Olmsted, Ohio, trying to balance the chaos of raising young children while managing everyday errands. On this particular afternoon, she had originally planned to take her mother, her 3-year-old son Julian, and her newborn baby daughter to Giant Eagle, a popular grocery store chain in the area. But when her baby fell asleep at home, Margot made a simple decision that would change her life forever. She decided to let the baby rest with her mother and take just Julian to the store. It was supposed to be a quick trip, nothing more than picking up some flower baskets and ingredients for dinner. Julian, with his infectious smile and love for dinosaurs, was excited to help his mom. He was that kind of kid, the kind who found joy in the smallest things, who made every mundane task an adventure. Margot and Julian arrived at the Giant Eagle located in the 27,200 block of Lorraine Road in North Olmsted around 3 in the afternoon. The weather was pleasant, and the parking lot was moderately busy with other shoppers going about their day. Margot parked her car facing forward, a detail that would later become significant. Julian sat in the shopping cart as they walked through the automatic doors into the store. Outside, Julian had helped his mother pick out flower baskets, his little hands pointing at the ones he liked best. Inside, they made their way through the aisles, gathering what they needed. Julian remained seated in the cart throughout their entire shopping trip. Margot went to the self-checkout, scanned her items, paid, and headed back toward the exit. Nothing seemed unusual. No one had approached them. No one had spoken to them. It was just another ordinary grocery run for a mother and her son. But what Margot didn't know was that she was being watched. What she didn't know was that someone had been following them, tracking their every move through the store, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And that someone was 32-year-old Bionca Ellis. Before we continue with what happened next, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications for The Only Witness, because we bring you the most compelling true crime stories that need to be told. Don't miss out on our next upload. Earlier that same day, Bionca Ellis had visited the North Olmsted Police Department. She wanted to discuss an arrest that had happened just days before, a probation violation that had landed her in custody briefly before she was released. Officers who interacted with her that morning noted nothing particularly alarming about her demeanor, though her criminal history showed a pattern of shoplifting, criminal trespass, and various traffic violations. What police didn't know at the time was that Ellis had a history of mental illness, specifically schizophrenia, and that she had stopped taking her prescribed medication. According to court records, she had never shown violent tendencies before. Nothing in her background suggested she was capable of what she was about to do. After leaving the police station, Ellis made her way to a Volunteers of America thrift store, located right next door to the Giant Eagle where Margot and Julian were shopping. Surveillance cameras inside the Volunteers of America captured everything. Ellis walked through the aisles, browsing, appearing like any other customer. But she wasn't there to buy anything. The store manager, who was working that day, later testified in court that she saw Ellis in the store. She saw Ellis holding knives, 2 kitchen knives with price tags still attached. Ellis didn't try to hide what she was doing. She took the knives and walked right out of the store without paying. Theft. Simple theft. But this wasn't about stealing knives to sell or use at home. This was about something far more sinister. Surveillance footage from outside the Volunteers of America store showed Ellis in the parking lot, testing the knives. She hit them against concrete pillars, checking their sharpness, their weight, their capability. She was preparing. She was planning. And then, with both knives in hand, she walked next door to Giant Eagle. Inside Giant Eagle, more surveillance cameras captured Ellis entering the store. She walked through the entrance, carrying at least one of the stolen knives. She moved through the aisles, not shopping, not looking at products, just wandering. And then she saw them. Margot Wood pushing a shopping cart with her 3-year-old son Julian sitting inside. There was no prior connection between Ellis and the Wood family. They had never met. They had never spoken. They didn't know each other existed. But in that moment, for reasons that remain unclear, Bionca Ellis made a choice. She decided to follow them. Detective Manuel Roman of the North Olmsted Police Department later walked a jury through the surveillance footage frame by frame. The videos showed Ellis turning and following Margot and Julian as they made their way to the self-checkout. She kept her distance, staying just far enough behind to avoid drawing attention. She watched as Margot scanned her items. She watched as they headed toward the exit. And then she followed them out into the parking lot. Margot had no idea any of this was happening. She walked to her car, Julian still sitting in the shopping cart, happy and oblivious to the danger lurking just feet away. She opened her trunk, preparing to load the groceries. She turned to her right, and that's when she saw her, Bionca Ellis, walking toward them, with a knife in her hand. Margot's mind raced. She didn't understand what was happening. Why was this woman walking toward them with a knife? What did she want? Instinct kicked in. Margot tried to protect her son. She pushed the shopping cart, trying to move Julian away from the approaching threat. But Ellis was fast. She lunged forward and stabbed the back of Margot's car trunk. The blade hit metal. Margot, in a panic, pushed the cart over, trying to create distance, trying to shield her baby boy. But Ellis didn't stop. She came at them again. In court, Margot's voice shook as she recounted what happened next. She stabbed him in the side of his face, Margot said, pausing to cry, and then she stabbed me. Ellis drove the knife into Julian's face, and then, as Margot tried desperately to pull her son to safety, Ellis stabbed her in the shoulder. But Ellis wasn't done. She stood up and stabbed Julian again, this time in the back. Julian cried out in pain. Blood began to pour. Margot grabbed her son from the cart, holding him, trying to stop the bleeding, trying to comprehend the nightmare unfolding in front of her. "Are you okay?" she asked him. Blood came out of the side of his mouth. And then, just like that, Ellis walked away. Not running, not frantic, not panicking. She just walked away like nothing had happened. Witnesses in the parking lot couldn't believe what they were seeing. Matthew Stroud, a shopper who was there with his wife, testified that he saw a woman stabbing a mother and child. He saw the knife covered in blood. He saw violent motions toward a mother and child. Griffin Schopf, a Giant Eagle employee who was on his break, saw a woman covered in blood holding a child and someone standing over them. Multiple witnesses described Ellis walking away from the scene calmly, casually, with the bloody knife still in her hand. One witness even said Ellis had a smile on her face. If you're still watching, thank you for staying with us on The Only Witness. Make sure you're subscribed so you never miss a story like this. Hit that bell icon, and let's continue. Travis Bush, another witness who was picking up a DoorDash order at the time, saw the attack unfold. He immediately got in his car and followed Ellis, trying to keep her in sight until police arrived. When he pulled up next to her, he rolled down his window and asked her, "Do you know you stabbed that kid?" Ellis's response: a shrug. Just a shrug of her shoulders. No words, no remorse, no acknowledgement of the horror she had just inflicted. She just kept walking. North Olmsted police officer Oliver Woolcott arrived on the scene within 2 minutes of the 911 call. By then, chaos had erupted in the parking lot. Shoppers were screaming, people were calling for help. Margot was on the ground, clutching her son, covered in blood. Emergency medical services rushed to the scene. Multiple witnesses, several of whom were registered nurses, tried to help. They performed CPR on Julian. They tried to stop the bleeding. They tried to save his life. Body-worn camera footage from officers at the scene showed paramedics working frantically to stabilize the 3-year-old boy. Julian was placed on an ambulance cot and rushed to the hospital. Margot, bleeding from her shoulder wound, was also transported. They were taken to separate rooms. Margot received 4 stitches for her stab wound, a scar she would carry for the rest of her life. But the physical scar was nothing compared to what came next. Police officers stayed with the family at the hospital, and it was there, in that sterile, cold hospital room, that Margot Wood was told her son was dead. 3-year-old Julian Wood, the boy who loved dinosaurs, who had just helped his mom pick out flower baskets, who had smiled and laughed in the grocery store minutes earlier, was gone. Meanwhile, back at the Giant Eagle parking lot, Officer Woolcott and other responding officers had apprehended Bionca Ellis. She was still holding the bloody knife. She didn't resist arrest. She didn't try to run. She was calm, compliant, almost detached from reality. Officer Joanne Felton, who booked and searched Ellis at the North Olmsted Police Department, later testified that Ellis seemed to understand instructions because she did what she was told. But there was something off about her, something unsettling. When witnesses and officers tried to talk to her about what she had done, she showed no emotion, no understanding of the gravity of her actions. Within days, the Cuyahoga County Prosecutor's Office moved forward with charges. Bionca Ellis was indicted on 10 felony counts, including aggravated murder, 2 counts of murder, 2 counts of attempted murder, 1 count of endangering children, 1 count of tampering with evidence, and 1 count of misdemeanor theft for stealing the knives. Prosecutor Michael C. O'Malley made it clear that this was a random, unprovoked attack. The Wood family had no connection to Bionca Ellis. There was no motive, no argument, no dispute. Ellis simply saw a mother and child and decided to kill. But as the case moved forward, Ellis's defense team began to raise questions about her mental state. In August 2024, her attorneys, Fernando Mack and Carlos Johnson, filed a motion to change her plea to not guilty by reason of insanity. They argued that Ellis suffered from schizophrenia and had been off her medication at the time of the attack. During court appearances, Ellis displayed bizarre behavior. She giggled inappropriately. She seemed disconnected from the proceedings. In September 2024, a judge ruled that Ellis was incompetent to stand trial. She was sent to North Coast Behavioral Health Care, a state mental health facility, where she was ordered to take her prescribed medication and receive treatment. It took 5 months for her competency to be restored. In February 2025, another hearing was held, and this time the judge ruled that Ellis was competent to stand trial. The case could finally move forward. The trial began in October 2025, nearly 500 days after Julian Wood's murder. Jury selection took place on October 2nd, and opening statements were heard on October 6th. The prosecution laid out their case clearly. Pay attention to actions and words, Assistant Prosecutor Anna Faraglia told the jury. They're very, very important in this case. And when you do that, you will find Bionca Ellis guilty, beyond a reasonable doubt, for each and every count of this indictment. The prosecution argued that while Ellis may have mental health issues, she understood what she was doing. She stole knives, she tested them, she followed her victims, she carried out a calculated attack, and then she walked away without remorse. The defense, on the other hand, did not dispute the facts. Ellis's attorney, Fernando Mack, acknowledged that his client was responsible for Julian's murder and for the attempted murder of Margot. There's no running away from that, he told the jury. That's not what this trial is about. The evidence will show, though, that it is obvious she was insane at the time of the offense. The defense's entire strategy hinged on convincing the jury that Ellis's schizophrenia and untreated mental illness rendered her legally insane at the time of the attack, meaning she could not understand the wrongfulness of her actions. Over the course of the trial, the prosecution called multiple witnesses. The manager of the Volunteers of America store testified about seeing Ellis with the knives. Surveillance footage was played, showing Ellis inside both stores, following Margot and Julian and carrying out the attack. Shoppers and bystanders who witnessed the stabbing took the stand, describing the horror they saw. Police officers testified about arresting Ellis and the evidence they collected. Forensic experts from the Cuyahoga County Regional Forensic Science Laboratory presented DNA analysis from the scene. And then came the most emotional testimony of all. Margot Wood took the stand. At the court's request, cameras did not show Margot's face, but her voice told the entire story. She described the ordinary day that turned into a nightmare. She described seeing Ellis approach with a knife. She described trying to protect her son. She described the stabbing, the blood, the crying. She described holding Julian, asking if he was okay, and watching blood pour from his mouth. She described Ellis walking away like nothing had happened, and she described learning that her son was dead. The courtroom was silent except for the sound of Margot's sobs. The jury listened. The judge listened. And Bionca Ellis sat at the defense table, showing little emotion. Before we get to the final part of this story, I want to remind you one more time to subscribe to The Only Witness. This channel is dedicated to bringing you real stories, real victims, and real justice. Hit that subscribe button now. The trial continued with more witnesses. Travis Bush, the DoorDash driver who confronted Ellis after the attack, testified about her chilling response, the shrug that suggested she didn't care. Officer Woolcott described apprehending Ellis in the parking lot. Officer Felton described booking her at the police station. Forensic experts presented evidence. And the medical examiner testified about Julian's injuries and cause of death. The prosecution rested their case after presenting overwhelming evidence. Every piece of surveillance footage, every witness account, every forensic detail pointed to one undeniable truth. Bionca Ellis murdered Julian Wood in cold blood. The defense did not dispute the murder itself. Their entire case rested on the insanity defense. They argued that she did not understand right from wrong at the time of the attack. They argued that she could not appreciate the wrongfulness of killing a child. But the prosecution countered with a crucial point. Ellis's actions before, during, and after the murder suggested otherwise. She stole knives. She tested them to make sure they were sharp enough. She followed her victims through the store. She waited until they were alone in the parking lot. She attacked. And then she walked away calmly, showing no panic, no confusion, no indication that she didn't understand what she had done. The prosecution argued that these were the actions of someone who knew exactly what they were doing. As of now, the trial is ongoing. The jury has heard all the evidence. They have seen the surveillance footage. They have heard Margot's heartbreaking testimony. They have listened to witnesses describe Ellis's cold, detached demeanor. And soon they will deliberate. They will decide whether Bionca Ellis is guilty of murder or whether her mental illness absolves her of legal responsibility. If convicted, Ellis faces life in prison. If found not guilty by reason of insanity, she will be committed to a mental health facility. But regardless of the verdict, one thing will never change. Julian Wood is gone. A 3-year-old boy who loved dinosaurs, who smiled at his mother, who helped pick out flower baskets, who had his entire life ahead of him, was taken in the most brutal, senseless way imaginable. Margot Wood will carry the scars of that day, both physical and emotional, for the rest of her life. She will never forget the sight of her son's blood. She will never forget his cries. She will never forget holding him as he died. And she will never forget the woman who walked away like it meant nothing. The Wood family has since filed a lawsuit against Giant Eagle, alleging that the company did not do enough to respond to security concerns at the North Olmsted store. A GoFundMe set up in Julian's honor raised over $270,000 to help the family with medical bills, funeral costs, and ongoing expenses. The community came together to support the Woods, but no amount of money, no amount of support can bring Julian back. This case raises difficult questions. How do we balance mental illness with accountability? How do we protect society from individuals who pose a danger while also ensuring they receive the treatment they need? And how do we prevent tragedies like this from happening in the first place? Bionca Ellis had a criminal history. She had documented mental health issues. She had been in and out of custody. And yet, she was out on the streets, untreated, unmonitored, and ultimately able to carry out an attack that took the life of an innocent child. As the jury deliberates, the world watches, the courtroom waits, and Margot Wood, along with her family, hopes for justice. Justice for Julian. Justice for a little boy who never got the chance to grow up. Justice for a mother who will spend the rest of her life wondering what if. What if she had brought the baby? What if she had parked somewhere else? What if she had gone to a different store? But those questions have no answers. All that remains is the truth. Bionca Ellis stabbed 3-year-old Julian Wood to death in a grocery store parking lot. And now, she must face the consequences. Thank you for watching this episode on The Only Witness. If this story impacted you, please leave a comment below, share this video, and make sure you're subscribed for more true crime content. We'll continue to follow this case and update you as the verdict comes in. Until next time, stay safe and remember, justice may be slow, but it never forgets.